An unknown danger advances through the galaxy. Colonies go dark, and it's time to start thinking about evacuating in Cedars from Ceres, Episode 1, Exodus. Hello and welcome to Tantrum House Studio Awesome. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Katie, and today we would like to show you Cedars from Ceres, Episode 1, Exodus.
I think we're just going to call it Exodus because that's a long title.
Long title.
This is the first in a series of 10 games planned in the Cedars from Ceres universe. In this game, players take on the role of the designers of arc ships being built to evacuate colony planets before they are consumed by an unknown danger.
Each game is going to take place over the course of 4 rounds in which players will jockey to get the best cards and then use those cards to gain resources, abilities, and hopefully points.
Each round, before going to the negotiation board called the Wing of Whispers, players are dealt 4 cards as a foundation to start from.
During the negotiation phase, players will take turns placing their negotiator tokens on open spots on the board. Each negotiator shows how many influence cubes it will be able to place in each direction, and if the negotiator matches the cast of the card, it places an extra influence cube there as well.
Once all negotiators have been placed, the cards are awarded to whoever had the most influence surrounding them. Ties will result in a discard.
Every time a card is awarded, the winner must retrieve one of their negotiator tokens that's adjacent to it. Any negotiators that remain on the board when all cards have been removed get to upgrade their influence by 1.
Then, during the integration phase, players can either discard their cards for resources or pay to add them to their arc. They can also rearrange the cards in their arc or activate any of their abilities.
At the end of each round, players will earn points during the prestige phase for any of the cards that have prestige abilities.
Then, when the next round begins, there's a preparation phase in which abilities are reset, and beginning with the player with the least prestige points, each player takes turns choosing where they want to be in turn order.
Alright, so just mentioning the turn order thing, it's really important where you go in turn order, because there are a lot of cards that will give you initial points when you integrate them, but there's also a ton of cards that have prestige points that give you points at the end, at the end of each round, but there's so many attack cards in this game that could really mess up what you've already put out in prestige points that you have to be really careful. If you are going first in a round, you want to try to focus on cards that give you initial points because your cards may be gone by the time counting those prestige points come up.
Yeah, during the foundation phase, there's an optional alternate rule, which I think should be the standard rule. In the standard rule, you're just dealt 4 cards, or I think it's just 2 if it's 2 players. Mm-hmm. But in the alternate rule, you take turns drafting them. So you draft one of the 4, and then you pass the next 3, and then you draft one of those 3 and pass. Mm-hmm. So you get a little more choice over what you have, but you're also feeding your opponent things.
Well, you also then kind of get an idea of what's out there and what might be coming to bite you later.
Yeah. There are 2 different types of cards. There's units, which are kind of the rooms or segments of your arc, and there's crew cards. Mm-hmm. And each unit can hold 2 crew cards. If a unit doesn't have any crew, then you can't actually score any points for it during the prestige phase. Mm-hmm. And if there's crew that don't have a unit that they can be in, they're considered vacant crew, and they don't get to use their abilities either. And if you can't find them a unit by the end of the next round, the integration phase, the next round, they just float off into outer space and they're gone.
They're just
You
gone.
just can't use them again. Yeah, I think my biggest complaint, there wasn't a whole lot of complaints, but my biggest one was that some of the wording was kind of clunky. I really struggled with integrate instead of just play. I kept wanting to say interrogate.
Yes.
Also, the fact
I think he actually said that a lot when we were playing.
Yeah.
I was like, why are we interrogating these people?
And then the fact that the rooms are called units threw me because, units to me typically is like pieces that you're moving on a board. Like the individual crew, I feel like, should be called units and not rooms.
No,
So
they should call them rooms and crew. It would just be so much easier.
The fact that they were called units threw me a little bit. So make sure the wording doesn't throw you off when you actually play the game.
Yes. There are several different casts in this game, and each one has a really different focus and what they kind of do for you. There are some that are jailers, and they're
the originals, kind of like the noble cast. They're like senators and judges and that sort of thing.
Diplomats and things.
And a lot of them have that jailer ability.
Yeah, and with jailers, you are able to pull a token, or you get a jailer token, and you get to take somebody else's crew and put them in jail, which is annoying if you've spent a lot of money and effort trying to get that one crewmate out, but it also counts towards points if that's available in your prestige points. They are super annoying for your opponents to have, but they're actually really great if you're using them. There's another cast that uses the tokens, and that's the mutants. They are able to kind of multiply. They have the mutant gene, which they can pass on.
Mutagen,
Yeah, they can pass on to other crew members that turn them also into mutants, effectively for your prestige or other card effects, which is really neat because there are a lot of cards that would interact with mutants specifically. And then there's the like holy, I don't know what they're called.
They're
like
called
priests.
Technocrats or something like that.
Theocrats. Theocrats.
Yeah, and they're basically all about this like cult. And there's these secondary worker cards that they try to pull in that give them extra points.
They're small amount of points.
And the converts.
Yeah, they're small amount of points, but the biggest thing with theocrats is they don't take up space on the arc, which is kind of weird.
The converts don't.
The converts.
Yeah, the priests do.
The priests do. So anytime you get one of these specialty, they're called second workers, you can't buy them in the normal Wing of Whispers. They don't come out in the deck. You have to be able to draw them with a card that says you get to draw one. And there's a bunch of them that can come out, and they don't take up any space in the room. So you can have 8 or 10 of them in a room instead of just the single 2 that you normally can have occupying a room.
Yeah, but if you make a mistake like me, you put them all in the same room, and then in the last round of the game, your wife comes in and blows up that room, and then they just float off into outer space, and you don't get points for them.
Yes, that mentioned reminds me that it's also one of those things where there is a lot of kind of take that in this game. You have to be ready for rooms to get blown up, and for people to go to jail or just killed, and so you can't get too attached to the way you're building your thing. Honestly, you have to be prepared for each round to be totally different. So you kind of have to build. You're gonna try to build an engine.
Yeah.
But that engine may have a huge monkey wrench thrown into it by an opponent.
Yeah. So you want to kind of focus on one color, I find, but you also want to see what other people are focusing on and maybe steal the cards that they're getting. I know whenever I was making bids, I was always trying to focus on my color, also make sure I had enough units because I felt like I never had enough of those rooms to put the crew in. And then also some cards, you might not want them, but you might want to recycle them to get their resources. So fight over the cards that give you a lot of resources, even if you're not going to put them into your arc.
Now, I am going to disagree with Ryan here. I'm going to say I think you should spread out a little bit, and Yes, it's true. It's true. I think you should spread out and be willing to go with whatever you end up with in
play
your
flexibly,
hand.
but try to focus.
No.
Well,
I think
important.
you need a little bit. I think you kind of need a little bit of everything, and I say that because there are so many different parts. There are some theocrats. If you're gonna play theocrats, you need to go hard in on theocrats. If you're gonna play the core, because they get secondary special workers that have to be drawn special, you have to go in hard on that. But any of the other ones, you need to be able to kind of shift around, use a lot of different ones. And I say that because if you ignore the jailers will come for you. That is the truth.
See, I think you do need to focus a little bit on one color, because when you're earning points, those prestige abilities during the prestige phase there's like 4 or 5 different types. There's affinity, where you earn a point or 2 points or whatever per type of card, or per jailer, or per prisoner, or whatever. So you want to have a lot of those. And then there's another one where you earn like 6 points for having the most of something. So you want to have the most of one color so that you can get those 6 points. And if you do like the gambling dens,
but
where
if you ignore somebody else's,
you can double up on it.
Like where I let Ryan get so far ahead because he focused in theocrats, and I was like, oh, he's already doing that. I'm not going to bother. I'll focus on something else. Then he just gets all the theocrats, and nobody challenges him.
Yeah, so you should definitely try to break their engine, but also you want to build yours. I do like that there's a little bit of a catch-up mechanic with those influence that are gained on the negotiators that are left over.
Yeah, that's actually really, really nice.
And the fact that you get to pick your turn order based on how far back you are.
That is a big... If that part wasn't in the game, this game would be broken. Because the person at the last turn has the most influence on the outcome for the prestige points.
One thing that we didn't mention is that those negotiators, at the end, whatever negotiators are out on the board, you get bonus points for how much influence they've gained over the game. So if you continually leave out one of your negotiators and he ends up with like a 3-2 or something, that is 5 bonus points.
Yeah. And I want to say the bidding part of this game is complex. Not in that it's hard to do, but there is so much to consider when you are laying down one of your negotiator tokens. It is, there are so many things. You're not just bidding on one thing at a time. First of all, you're splitting your bid between 2 different things. So you have to consider which 2 you're next to. You have to consider where it's at on the board, and if you get a second one close to that, which token you might be able to leave down on the board to bump up its stats in the next round. You're also having to think, like, because certain cards, depending on how many players you're playing with, can be bid on 4 different times, you have to decide, like, am I going to go all in and try to win just 1 or maybe 2 cards? Or I'm going to try to spread it out and see if I can get a whole bunch, but you may not. It really is a very complex, thoughts that have to go into how you're bidding and the exact placement of these tokens.
Yeah, there's a lot of thinking involved, and the game says it's 120 minutes. That is not wrong. It is going to be a long game.
4 rounds. 4 rounds for 120 minutes. It seems like a little excessive, but there's so much thinking that has to go into it. There is a lot of reading in this game because maybe after you play it several times, you'll kind of, oh yeah, that's kind of what that card does. But you have to keep in mind, not only what you're bidding on to play, but also what can you bid on that has a good trade-in value so that you can get the resources you need to actually build the things you're wanting to build, and then balancing the rooms versus the crew. There is just there's a lot of room for AP in this game.
Why don't you grab the box real quick?
All right.
Yeah, so we really enjoyed Cedars. I think the art was really great.
Cedar Exodus.
Oh, Cedars from Ceres, Episode 1, Exodus. We really enjoyed it, and I personally am looking forward to, like, 9 additional games in this universe. I want to see what else they have going on.
Yeah,
and
are they going to be...
what's going on with this unknown danger?
Yeah, are they going to be additional, like, standalone games, or are they going to be, like...
I think they're going to be standalone. I don't know.
Games that can be added onto this, because that could be cool, too.
Yeah, I'd like to see there be some sort of flow with it.
Yeah.
If this sounded of interest to you, definitely check it out. Cedars from Ceres, Episode 1, Exodus. And be sure to keep listening to our channel, viewing, for more board gaming videos like this one. Listening to our channel.
Listen to our channel.